The next one is Soundgarden, Bad Motor Finger, which is also came out 20 years ago, 1991. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. I can listen to the first track to the last track straight through. Rusty Cage and Outshine, two of my almost favorite songs of all time. And if I had a top 10 of my favorite rock in the rock genre songs of all time, it would be Rusty Cage and Outshine would be in the top the top 10. So for one album to have my two top favorite songs of all time, it must be a great album. At least to me it is. And Bad Motor Finger is a great album. Soundgarden, they got, because of Nirvana and Pearl Jam, they didn't get their popularity, their height of their popularity until '94, because the Super Unknown, which is after this, was bounced off the whole grunge era. So when this album came out, they weren't famous already. So I mean, they had their following in Seattle and people knew who they were, but by the time Super Unknown came out, the whole grunge road had been paved already. So that's why that Super Unknown album is, they're probably known for that album more. But this is the album to me that really, their best ever, is Bad Motor Finger. Like, Outshine is probably one of the greatest rock songs ever. And out of all the lead singers, I think Chris Cornell had the best voice. He's the lead singer of Soundgarden, if you don't know, obviously. But he had the best voice and has the best voice of all. You know, Kurt Cobain wasn't really a singer. He was more of a writer and an artist. And Eddie Vedder, he's a great singer, but Chris Cornell has the best voice, the best vocal range. So this is one of my favorites of all time, Bad Motor Finger. And the last but not least, Alice in Chains' Dirt. Now this album came out in '92, so it wasn't officially 20 years ago, but still, it's still in the same ballpark. It's still roughly 20 years since this album came out, and it was in the same grunge era world. This is also one of my top favorite albums of all time. If I had a top 10, this would definitely be in the top 10 also. I can listen to this album from first to last. Them Bones and Rooster and Junkhead and Angry Chair. Once again, this was in '92 when this album came out, so it was the height of MTV, the MTV universe, where they had played videos 24/7, so there was a lot of good videos. Like Them Bones is a great video. It's a very short song, but the video is great. Angry Chair is probably my favorite video that they did for this album. The artistry was good. Like I said, back then a lot of these albums were sold based on the videos, so it was a lot of imagery behind it, but to me it didn't compromise them, it just made them better, it enhanced them. Some videos don't enhance the artist. Well, with Alice in Chains, the videos they made from this album really enhanced them. So yeah, Lane Staley was a great singer. His voice was so unique that even though they have a new lead singer now and the band is still together, it's just hard to, his voice just mixed with the misery of the vibe of this album. It's very a melodramatic sounding album, and his voice was just perfect for the band. It made their sound more unique than anybody else's sound. It was hard to pin them in the same category as grunge, because it was Alice in Chains has a mood to it. So once again, this is one of my favorite. Them Bones, one of my favorite songs of all time. Angry Chair, one of my favorite songs of all time. This song called Wood, which was there was even a movie called Singles about the grunge era, and Wood was on that soundtrack. The soundtrack to Singles was like one of the things that catapulted the whole grunge scene, because back then it was fairly new to have like a movie soundtrack. It was a sort of a thing that just started, where the movie soundtrack would become just as big as the movie, or bigger than the movie. Singles, I think the soundtrack was bigger than the actual movie. So it was that era when soundtracks could be bigger, just as big as the movie, or bigger. In that case, Singles was actually, the soundtrack to the movie Singles was bigger than the movie, and it had a lot to do with all these bands. You had Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Smashing Pumpkins, and a lot of other bands were on that soundtrack, and it just made everybody from that soundtrack really blow up, and it sort of kick-started the grunge era. So once again, this is a tribute to the grunge 20-year anniversary. Like I said, believe it or not, that era only lasted roughly about 3 years, and then it went on to the B-rate grunge artists, and then it went on to just disappear. But looking back 20 years ago, you realize those 4 albums that I tributed are very rare now. You don't get those solid albums anymore. So I always go back and listen to them. So if you don't have those albums, I highly, highly recommend. They're all classic albums. Check them out. And this is a tribute to all that passed away. Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, Mike Starr from Alice in Chains, Kurt Cobain. Rest in peace to those guys, and their music will last forever. This has been another Count Macula episode. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time.